0.1% de todas las pruebas que se hacen salen positivas, lo que es alrededor de 3.663 pruebas que se hacen diariamente. Actualmente hay 35 personas hospitalizadas debido a COVID-19 y hemos tenido 1.389 personas que desafortunadamente han fallecido debido a COVID-19. Le queremos exhortar que si no se ha vacunado, se vacune. Uno de los lugares que puede ir a vacunarse es a nuestra clínica de salud pública. Puede llamar para saber los horarios o puede ir a nuestro sitio web. Y si tiene alguna pregunta, nos puede llamar al 603-589-4500 y ahí puede hacer cualquier pregunta que tenga sobre COVID o sobre nuestra clínica. Nuestra clínica está abierta desde agosto 2 en la 18 de la Mulberry, aunque les exhortamos que use la puerta que está en la Elm Street porque ese lado tiene elevador. También como hemos visto que han subido los casos de COVID-19, les recomendamos que usen mascarillas cuando estén en lugares concurridos, esté vacunado o no esté vacunado. Si tiene un niño que es mayor de 12 años, ellos son elegibles para recibir la vacuna COVID-19. Y como ya es tiempo para volver a la escuela, es importante que sus hijos estén al día con todas sus vacunas. Si quiere más información sobre eso, puede contactar a la enfermera de su escuela, puede contactar a su doctor o su pediatra, o puede llamar al departamento de salud para ver cuál es la vacuna que le hacen falta para que estén listos para empezar la escuela. Las universidades también este año algunas están requiriendo la vacuna de COVID-19, entonces sería importante que si tienen hijos que están en la universidad, que llamen y se asesoren si necesitan la vacuna COVID-19 para reanudar sus estudios en persona. Pueden llamar a su universidad para obtener esa información. Es un día bello hoy, está caluroso. Usen este día para salir, divertirse en familia, pero siempre asegurándose de que lo hagan saludablemente. Así que si están en lugares concurridos, use máscara, mantenga distanciamiento social, lávese las manos ya cuando regrese a casa. Y si está enfermo, por favor, quédese en casa. Es muy importante que si tiene síntomas, se haga la prueba para saber si es COVID-19 o si no, pero si está enfermo, no importa de qué, siempre quédese en casa si no se siente bien.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN.live.
USA Radio News.
I'm Brad Bernard. Federal judges will no longer play the role of referee when the intensely partisan, once-per-decade fight over congressional map-making gets underway this year. As a result of decisions by the Roberts Court, federal courthouses will be forced to turn away even the most egregious cases of partisan gerrymandering, which could make it easier for state lawmakers to lock in politically manipulated voting maps for the next decade. The Senate agreed to wrap up the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill through a test vote. 18 Republicans joined with Democrats to support moving forward on the legislation, clearing a key procedural hurdle. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says there is something both parties have in common.
But both those visions include physical infrastructure that works for all of our citizens.
This is USA Radio News.
You know, if you feel like you're stuck with a healthcare plan that isn't affordable or you simply don't like it, right now is a great time to switch to MediShare. The typical family saves $500 a month when they join MediShare, and what's more, they like it. MediShare has double the customer satisfaction rate compared to the typical health insurance plan. That's double. So you get a massive network of providers to choose from. You get telehealth services, and MediShare is the most trusted name in healthcare sharing. It's been around for more than 25 years, shared more than $4 billion in healthcare bills. Here's why now really is the time to make the switch to You can start saving each month, which is huge, but right now they'll waive your joining fee. So you'll save another $170 right off the bat. But again, it's a limited time offer. You got to call now. And it only takes 2 minutes to find out how much you'd save by switching. Here's the number, 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE, 833-34-BIBLE.
People living in the scenic forest lands of Northern California found themselves facing a weekend of fear as the largest single wildfire in state history threatened to reduce thousands of homes to ashes. Robert Foxworthy of CAL FIRE says people need to be ready to evacuate.
With what we've seen the last few years in California, it's obvious that fires can break out anywhere and can destroy structures anywhere within the state of California. So I would say that the public always needs to be ready, and if they're asked to evacuate, please do so.
I don't think anyone's thinking logically anymore. I think they've just let this really just run crazy.
About 800 protesters gathered Friday afternoon on the grounds outside the Michigan state capitol to rally against government mandates for vaccinations and masks. Tammy Clark, executive director of the conservative group Stand Up Michigan, encouraged the audience to let their voices be heard through nonviolent civil disobedience. This is USA Radio News.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go. And pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-215-5141. 800-215-5141. That's 800-215-5141.
The Moderna and Pfizer vaccine tests were conducted as customary with a control group, a group within the trial who were given a placebo and not the test vaccine. However, during the trial and after the untested vaccines were given emergency use authorization, the vaccine companies conducting the trial decided to break protocol and notify the control group they were not vaccinated. Almost all the control group then were given the vaccine. Purposefully dissolving the placebo group violates the scientific purpose to test whether the vaccine has any efficacy, any actual benefit, and/or safety issues. Without a control group, there is nothing to compare the vaccinated group against. The U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan is telling Americans to get out. Dan Naraki has the story.
The American Embassy in Kabul is urging Americans in Afghanistan to leave the country as soon as possible. The embassy issued the security alert on Saturday, telling U.S. citizens still in the country to leave on commercial flights if they can, because help from the embassy may be extremely limited. The warning comes a day after Taliban fighters captured a provincial capital in the south of the country in their latest offensive on Afghan cities. From the USA Radio News Ohio Bureau, I'm Dan Naraki.
Border agents on Wednesday took into custody 834 unaccompanied children illegally crossing the southern border, marking the highest daily total recorded since the Biden administration started releasing such data in March. For USA Radio News, I'm Brad Bernards.
Every time nacho fries came back, that
Chronicles of Hope
seasoning was
is essential reading for seekers of inspiration and spiritual empowerment. This series offers nourishment for those on a path of increased awareness at this challenging time. Inspired by higher sources of wisdom, Chronicles of Hope delivers messages to lift your spirit with a roadmap of hope and guidelines for living a life of expanded consciousness. The guides offer powerful insight for mental, emotional, and spiritual growth at this critical tipping point for humanity. The message is clear. We must change. We have the power to raise our vibrational energy individually and collectively before it's too late. I am Lois Herman, author of the best-selling Chronicles of Hope series and host of the Inspiring Hope radio show at WSMN.live or 95.3 FM. You can find me at loisherman.com or chroniclesofhope.net.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Herman.
Good morning and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I am your host, Lois Herman, and I'm here to inspire you with positive messages and celebrate people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts and energies on truth, honesty, and integrity, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, we create powerful change and positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you are inspired by today's show. And today, I want to welcome you to a very special show. We're going to talk about our deep connection with animals. The Unquietists tell us that humans retain all of the instincts of all of their ancestors, not just human and pre-human, but all of the instincts from all of the animals in the evolutionary chain. However, most humans are more in their heads, and they ignore their natural instincts, which leads to disturbance, discord, distress, and disease. Mother Earth Spirit Gaia described herself as the sum of all consciousness on the planet. All living things are part of her. She is the life of our planet, and as such, she feels and expresses what all other living creatures are feeling, from plants to animals and humans. Gaia is the life force that lives in and around all of nature. We're all interconnected through her web of living energy. When we live in touch with her and are connected to the wonders of nature, we thrive. Unfortunately, most humans tend to ignore this, and they tend to excess, which is something Gaia doesn't see in her other children. Humans consume without regard to outcomes. Most animals, when they graze, for instance, they know enough not to kill the plant they eat. They move on to another field so that the plants grow back. Migration patterns are caused by this. Most animals graze and move on, given the freedom to do so. And nature contains cycles of life. Plants grow and die in natural rhythms and cycles. And sometimes fire is even necessary to open certain seeds and clear the path for new growth. Given the natural process, the fires die out and balance resumes. When humans interfere out of supposed wisdom, maliciousness, or desire for profit, it's often to the detriment of plant and animal life. Many animals die as a result of human interference. There are people doing wonderful things to help the planet, and their efforts need to be encouraged and supported. We need to stop using artificial products because they fill our lands with synthetic waste that doesn't break down. And it also causes damage to our bodies and to animals that ingest them or get caught in them. Using chemicals to beautify our own lawns and yards and gardens affects our animals. My own older cat developed an autoimmune reaction to chemicals used on our lawn. While humans may not directly ingest these chemicals, we do inhale them, which affects our lungs, our skin, and other systems. Animals get the residue on their paws, their fur, and their feathers, which is absorbed into their skin and directly ingested when they groom themselves. So as we stop using these toxic substances, our lawns may be less luxurious, yet all in our habitat will be much healthier. Animals are also amazing communicators if we would only stop to notice. At our Health and Wellness Center, our sweet little dog Ruby is very sensitive to energies. She can sense this amazingly strong spiritual guiding force in our center that she's a little intimidated by. And she also will often not go toward the elevator or the stairwells. And we were told by Archangel Michael that the stairs and the elevators are where sometimes spirits get stuck because they consider that's a place of ascension. So we have to clear the elevator and the stairs on a regular basis so little Ruby will be comfortable going there. There's many things our animals can teach us. And in a few moments, we're going to speak with an amazing animal communicator who's going to share some pretty fascinating stories. Meanwhile, you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman. We're here every Sunday morning at WSMN.live, 95.3 FM or 1590 AM. You can also find me at loisherman.com or chroniclesofhope.net. We're going to play an amazing song right now.
Horses are creatures who worship the earth. They gallop on feet of ivory, constrained by the wonder of dying and birth. The horses still run, they are free. My body is merely the shell of my soul, but the flesh must be given its due. Like a pony that carries its rider back home, like an old friend who's tried and been through. I had a vision of eagles and horses high on a ridge in the race to the wind, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses. I'm flying the heavenly heights. They know neither limit nor bound. They're the guardian angels of darkness and light. They see all and hear every sound. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul's a free flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought to rise up on glorious wings. I had a vision of eagles and horses high on a ridge in a race to the wind, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses. I'm flying again, flying again, I'm flying again. My body is merely the shell of my soul, but the flesh must be given its due, like a pony that carries its master back home, like an old friend who's tried and been true. My spirit will never be broken nor caught, for the soul is a free flying thing, like an eagle that needs neither comfort nor thought to rise up on glorious wings. I had a vision of eagles and horses high on a ridge in a race to the wind, going higher and higher, faster and faster, on eagles and horses. I'm flying again, flying again, flying again.
So that was one of my favorite artists, John Denver, and Eagles and Horses, and as many of his songs that I've listened to, I actually never really listened to that one. So I'm delighted to have Michele Lowry in the studio with me today. She's a wonderfully gentle soul and an animal communicator who does believe the animals are here to teach us and communicate with us all the time. We just need to pay closer attention. Learn to listen for their wisdom. So good morning, Michele. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Lois. Good morning to you. That just brought a tear to my eye.
I noticed that. So tell us how that song resonates with you.
Okay, I'll do my best. So my dear horse, Echo, who has been a mentor and guide for many, many years, on his last day on the planet, so he planned his whole transition. We were out in the field with my dog and my miniature horse that was his companion, and we were playing John Denver songs. I don't know how it all started, but we were playing John Denver songs and they were grazing. It was just this most beautiful last day on the planet, and he was very ready to transition, so this wasn't any stretch of anything that I was making choices for him. And for some reason this hits because the horses are such a deep connection for me. And then on top of that, Eagle is my spirit guide. Oh. So when I was sent this song by a friend, oh my gosh, this is the perfect song. It encompasses the earth, it encompasses the spirit and the heavens, and it brings it all together in this ability to be free in your spirit.
Absolutely.
And I just, and he just came right through and reminded me of that beautiful day. And, I still have my miniature horse and we do amazing work together.
Yeah.
So it really, I was told this morning on my way in that I may cry to this song today. So here I am being honest and open.
Oh, wonderful. Well, he's here with you also through your book. I've started reading it. It's called The Rock, and it is amazing. This is written through Echo's eyes. Destiny through the eyes of a horse. This is Echo's story. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We had been sharing a lot of wisdom that he was bringing through channeled writing. So in my own work, I was learning how to be a clearer and clearer conduit for the channeling of his messages, which obviously makes it a clearer channel for nature and for other animals and other guides to come through, because there's nothing blocking that experience. And so over time, he taught me that I could hear his messages and then I would write. So for me, because I have a very busy mind, writing somehow disconnects my mind from getting too involved and thinking, so I can be pure in the writing. And the book he has taught me so much about myself and so many ways that animals in a very high spiritual place can teach us to be in our true authentic selves, to walk the path we're supposed to walk, that I wanted to put it all down in a writing and share it. And he channeled the entire book.
Wow.
So every morning we would sit down for 2 hours and I'd have my laptop and he would come and he would stand right over me. And I would type.
And he was dictating and you were being the transcriptionist.
I was his secretary. And he would just every morning, and then he would go off and he would graze and he would come back and we'd write some more. And so the book started to get created and edited and reset. So what was cool about the book is that every chapter has a message of what the lesson was that was learned within that chapter, which kind of helped to tie it all together. So it's very powerful. It's just a beautiful way to understand who we are through the eyes of an animal.
Exactly. And there's a lot of, just in the little bit that I have read, there are insights, because he's talking about his dumb and weaning from his dumb and how it's supposed to be done and how the human is supposed to communicate with them so that they can understand what's going on. Yeah. We just tend to treat our animals as pets, and without realizing, until we really have been around them long enough, then we come to know that there is a communication. But I know that if we set an expectation and if we communicate with them, that it makes things so much more fluid.
It really does. And I tell people all the time, because people say, but they can't hear me, I can't hear them. And it's okay if you don't feel that you can hear them, because they can hear you. They know your thoughts. They know what you're thinking, what you're feeling before you ever utter a word, because in that world, it's all telepathic. It's all body language. It's subtle body language. And so when you really sit long enough and observe and come in from a place of being the complete student, it's amazing the wealth of knowledge you can gain from all of that. And they want to bring us into that place of, this is who you are now, stand in it. And Echo was very patient with me in the beginning. I had no clue what I was doing. And over 18 years transformed me, and it was him.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you ended up coming into this?
Yeah, it's a fascinating, I look back and I'm just in awe of the journey. So I was born and raised in London, England, and I came over here in 1995. And in that time, I was going through a huge change and a huge transformation of my own personally. And in 2000, I was recently divorced, and I had Echo. I had 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks at the time. And I suddenly found myself on my own in an apartment on a horse farm going, oh my gosh, what's next? 31, 33 years old, never lived on my own before. But it was the door opener. It was a huge ability for me to understand myself better. And what started to happen was that somehow I would get psychic information that would go out about 3 months.
Okay.
And it was a way for me on my own to go, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And through that process, I was opening. And I began to connect to Echo very differently. I began to connect to my dogs very differently. And I remember the first time I was doing some volunteer work in a horse barn, I'd fed all the horses. And all of a sudden I heard, I'm ready to go out now. And I went, okay, there's nobody here, just me and the horses. And I went to where I thought I heard the message, and that horse had finished breakfast and was ready to go out into the paddock. So my first real recollection of communication, although I think I've been doing it forever. And everything just led from one thing to another, relocating several times. And each time I would meet people that would inspire me, that would teach me. Each time I was learning to be more open, my own huge self-healing work with my heart, so that I could be this better conduit. And it's ongoing.
Of course, we're continuing to learn.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Echo was like, once he realized I was open, then the lessons came, and the lessons came, and the lessons came. And he got to a place where he was very sick. And it was Dr. Julie Montgomery, a mentor of mine from 2000, who helped me understand there was holistic ways of doing things. And there was alternative ways of looking at things. And she helped heal him. So now I was studied with her. 2-3 years I studied with her. I took all of her classes. I ended up starting my business and bringing it back to New Hampshire. I was in Florida at the time. And then a friend of mine said, I'm taking a Reiki class. Would you take it? I think you should. And I said, okay. I have no idea what Reiki was or what it did or anything. I loved the teacher, and I ended up studying with her for 3 years. And I felt I'd come home. And I just kept opening and clearing and cleansing. She was a fabulous teacher. Judy Tash is her name. She's in Wells, Maine. And then 2 years later, I got introduced to shamanism.
Okay.
And shamanism just hit the core of my being. And I studied for 2 years with a lady called Anne Souza.
Can you tell us a little bit, I'm sorry to interrupt, about shamanism to you? What is that? What is that for our listeners? They may not know what shamanism is exactly.
Thank you for asking. So shamanism is a way to connect to our bloodline. It's a way to connect to the ancient ways, to the simplicities of life, to ceremony, to honoring, to working in harmony with nature, with the animals, with our spirit guides, with our ancestors, and knowing that there's this much bigger picture to the way that we live life here on Earth, and that we're never on our own. We may physically be in a room on our own or live on our own, but we are never, ever alone. And we always have, excuse me, these amazing ways to connect to all of these guides that just want to be there and help us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so shamanism for me is a way to not only connect to all of that in a very ancient way, but it heals your bloodline.
Okay.
So when you're willing to step into healing a pattern that seems to be passed from generation to generation,
yes,
and that's been proven time and time again, shamanism is 10,000 years old. When you heal your bloodline, you're healing everything that they have learned to do for survival, for finding their way through life, but it doesn't necessarily mean it works for you.
And you raise a very good point, because I do similar work,
Yeah.
doing a lot of ancestral investigation myself and finding, and when we think about what our ancestors have been through, I just had the honor and privilege of presenting at the Daughters of the American Revolution, their big annual conference, and I had to do a little bit of research about the American Revolution, and looking at what not only the soldiers, but what the women went through, what the animals went through, what everyone went through at that time. That was 8 years of extreme, intense, who is doing what, a lot of trauma. And then I found out that I had several ancestors myself that lived back then. So I have some of that memory myself, and those traumas, those sense of mistrust or who to trust. There's a lot of that I know that for myself, I am lifting and processing, and a lot of my clients are processing ancient memories as well. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And what I'm finding is that what I was taught was, as you heal yourself and you heal your bloodline going backwards,
yes,
you heal the unborn child.
Absolutely.
And so those, I'm getting chills now. So as you heal those patterns that have been passed down, those unborn children, or I don't have children, but your unborn children or your children don't carry that pattern anymore. Right. So things change.
Yes.
And they don't have to work through the things that I feel my generation has worked through, and you find your path in your 40s and 50s going, oh, I did this as a child.
Yes.
And all this stuff happened in between. These kids now, they're in their teens and in their 20s, and they're on it, and they're doing what they were here to do, and they're connected. And it's fascinating to just sit back and witness it all.
Right. And some of them are doing it and others are completely lost. So there's this, everybody's on their own path, and they will find their path at the right time, at the perfect time.
Absolutely. And shamanism was a huge shift for me to bring in more of a multi-layered, multi-dimensional aspect to my work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then the animals have taught me. Every single animal I have ever worked with, my own and others, have gifted me with something that I didn't know or I wasn't aware of. And then I find what happens is that down the road, I work with another animal, and that gift was for that animal. And then so there's this huge pay it forward experience when you stay out of the way of knowing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go in. Why am I here? What do you need? Why am I here? And what am I servicing you with?
That's a wonderful way of looking at it when you're working with clients, or even, I know, interviewing different people for the show. I learn something from everyone, every animal, every person that I interact with on the show. And I take away these wonderful, valuable nuggets that I apply in my life, which then allows me to help others apply it. As you're saying, we're paying it forward.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I interrupted your journey. After the shamanic, then what happened once you learned the shamanism?
So I took a long time to label myself. I'm not really a label person.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was communicating with the animals, but I also knew that animal communication had a box. And I was born to never be in a box and to change and not conform and do it differently. And so it took me a long time to actually come out and say, I'm a communicator.
Right.
And what I did is I used an opportunity at a network businessing meeting to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most emotional thing to feel my truth and be witnessed. And I think that's why I had to do it in front of other people.
Right.
Was to stand in it and be witnessed and be honored for what I was doing. And then everything took off. And then it was for me to really trust and believe that what I was receiving was accurate, was real, was from the animal.
Was authentic.
Thank you. And so the journey has been ongoing. You know, I listened to your show Anna Marie.
Yes.
Beautiful spirit. And
Isn't she?
Everything spot on with, it's a journey. They teach you, they want to teach you, they are experiencing your life and they want to show you the way. And it's up to us whether we choose to delve in or not delve in. You know, I have clients that are just, it's a dog and this is how I'm doing it. And there are others that are multidimensional in their experiences with their animals. And so I've even changed my words. I don't really use owner anymore. Who are we to own them?
Right.
You know, I use caregiver or caretaker or part of the family or part of the tribe has been my new piece.
Sure.
And so it's just ongoing. It feeds my soul every minute of every day. And the learning just continues and continues and continues.
And my dear friend, Kathy, I was speaking with the other day about, I have 2 new kitties, and I have an older cat, and she's acting out a little bit about bringing in some new kitties. And she said, well, you know, dogs have owners, cats have servants.
It's very true. Yes. So, we are blessed that they choose to be in our house.
Exactly. We
bow daily.
Yes. So based on the interview that I had with you a little bit earlier this week, I'm communicating more readily with both of them, with all 3 of them. Yeah. And telling them how wonderful they're going to have a time together and interact with each other, and they're just going to be such fast friends. And the older cat, now you're in charge. You have to teach the others how to be great cats because you are a fabulous cat. So I keep planting that. Yeah. And what I have to do, though, I want you to share this. I'm saying that verbally to them. However, there is a fear of when I turn these 2 little ones loose in the house that there's going to be like this terror that goes through the house. And what I want you to share what we need to be doing, but I'm recognizing that I am sending a mixed message, and I need to be more clear. So share how we are supposed to communicate with our animals.
So communication is from the heart, but all of our senses are involved. So there's a knowing, there's a sense, there's hearing. People, that's why communication to most people means audible.
Right.
And in animals, it can be any of your senses. It can be a visual. It can be a guided message. It can be anything that comes through. And when we come from a place of no agenda, of no expectation, and we really sit back and observe how the animals are choosing to communicate with us, is how we can then deepen that ability. So when I first honored the fact that I was communicating, and animals would look at me and they'd be saying something or doing something, and I'd say to them, I know you're communicating with me. I have no idea what you're saying. So truth and honesty is really important. And I'd say you have to find another way. And you could literally watch them going, okay, that didn't work. Let me try this. And I'd see them shift and I'd go, not working, still not getting it. So this wasn't, it was probably a naturally born gift, but my 21 years in the computer world shifted my ability into mind-based. So this whole time was learning how to go heart-based,
right,
and feel. And so they would help me by finding ways to communicate with me so I could feel what that felt like. And it really feels like a door opens and there's this flow of energy. And I find that when I'm trying too hard, my gut shuts down and I can feel this resistance. And I go, you're in your head. You're in your head. Drop into your heart and ground yourself. Drop into your heart and ground yourself. And then I open and then I can feel more and I can experience more. And it's also honoring where the animals are coming from. So with your situation, one of the things I learned from Danielle McKinnon, who's an amazing communicator, she said, as human beings, we say one thing and we visualize a different thing.
Right.
Which is what we had talked about earlier this week. So what she was saying is if you have a dog on the couch and you're asking the dog to come off the couch because you don't want them on the couch, why, I don't know. I love my animals being everywhere. That there's a place in our visual mind that is visualizing the dog on the couch, even though verbally you're saying, get off the couch.
Right.
So you're sending mixed messages because the dog is seeing you have the dog on the couch.
Right.
And you're saying, get off the couch. So it's really important to really acknowledge all of our different layers of communication and know that they're all going on at the same time. And then being aware of what we're doing. So your animal is teaching you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you being visual right now? Because that's the message I'm picking up on. And so your fear and your concerns and your visualizing how you expect it may go.
Right.
Is manifestation.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's all of that.
And that's how we manifest in so many ways. We know that, those of us that know about the power of the mind and manifesting. What I'm fascinated to learn from you is that we inadvertently, and I do know this logically, however, this is a perfect example of my fear manifesting the non-intended outcome, the what I don't want, because I'm fearful. I have a lot of what I call gazantas in my house, goes onto the floor, goes onto the wall, goes onto the table. I have a lot of stuff in my house and a lot of plants. And I know cats love plants and they love to bat the plants and they, jump in the plants. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to clear everything out. And, so I have this fear. And based on what you're saying is I am projecting that to the kittens to say, because my older cat doesn't do that. She's fabulous. But I'm projecting to the kittens that this is what you're supposed to do. And I have to stop that. I have to see them playing and romping through the stairs and the halls and having fun without interfering with all the gazantas.
Yeah, and certainly the honoring of your older cat. And they do like a job to do. So very often when you bring in a younger animal, so a lot of people with older dogs will bring in a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
They never ask the older dog if they wanted a younger dog in the house. And so sometimes that's where issues can come because the older dog is like, really?
Right.
Like, life is really good. It's all peaceful. We all know what we're doing. And now you're bringing in this ball of craziness.
Yes.
And I don't want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get the dogs are like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. It's giving me a new lease of life. But unless you ask, you don't know what their response is. And so bringing something new into the household, there's always that place of going, we love you. You're still part of the household. You still rule the roost if that's the way it is. And these two are coming in to learn and to experience life, and we're giving them that opportunity. My dog who passed away in December, who also was part of that song, the tearful part of that song, he never wanted another dog. He played, he would love to go out and socialize, but it was him and I. We were partners, we were business partners, we were in relationship together, and we were very, very close. He had my back 24/7. And so he was very clear that no other dog was to come in during his lifetime. And other than two black and tan coonhounds that I adopted when they were 10 and a half years old from the shelter.
Right.
And I thanked him for letting me bring them in. They were supposed to only be about 6 months left, and they went 3 and 4 years. So I apologized to him profusely. I said I had no idea. But once they had left and transitioned, I said, it's you and I.
Okay.
That's my honor, my respect to you. And then I just got a new puppy 4 weeks ago, and she's a beautiful addition to the miniature horse that I have. So it's all in finding that harmony and that balance.
Yeah. It was interesting because we lost our older cat back in May, and she seemed very, very sad and very lost without him. Not that they were really close, but there was a chase around kinship. And she's an indoor cat, so she looks outside at the rabbits and the squirrels and the chipmunks and just watches them. So what I've been telling her is we're bringing someone in that you can play with, someone that you can actually play with. That's what these two are here for. And that you can snuggle with and have as friends. We're bringing you some friends to play with in the house. So I've been communicating with her on that, but I'm not quite sure she's bought into it yet.
She may just need to assert her authority, and then once she's asserted her authority and put them where she needs them to be, then...
Yeah, that's what I've told her. You're in charge.
Yeah.
You're in charge.
Yeah.
So tell us more about, you talked about finding a holistic path for the animals. And this is one of the things that I have found based on the message from my old man cat that died very sick, and having to put him down was heartbreaking. Usually my cats would die in the wild, and I would just think, well, maybe somebody else has found them. But it was very difficult to actually have to put him down. What that did for me was to look for a holistic vet, a holistic approach to taking care of the cats, which is very different. And you have a really strong some really strong thoughts on that. So I would love for you to share. I'm just new into this world.
Yeah.
So tell us what you know about the holistic path for animals.
So it's interesting that you say that and we're talking about it today, because I'm actually learning how to be a little more integrative.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was back in 96, I think, my first Rhodesian Ridgeback Kobo came over here from England and got very, very sick. And the vet could not figure out what was going on. And he had a Lyme vaccine, and he was dead 6 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
And he died of kidney failure and lupus.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out what the link was, because I wasn't awake then, 2 years later.
Okay.
When I had found a holistic veterinarian, and I was just chatting about the dog I did have at the time, which was his son, and some of the history, and she had shared, that was going on. I believe the vaccine has changed a little bit, but what it did was it set me on a path of wanting to understand care, medical care better.
Mm-hmm.
And Kobo's death launched me into my work.
Right.
So I ended up going into Barnes & Noble looking for a book, anything. And you know how this is. You walk through the door and they're like 5 feet in front of you is a book, and you go, I think that's the book. So it was Dr. Pitcairn's book on cats and dogs.
Okay.
First book I ever bought. And I went home and I went, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just look through it. So a lot of it's about diet. And so I started shifting my other dog's diet from a more of a store brand food into more of a natural food. And I couldn't believe the difference in him just by changing the food.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm getting all inspired. So he had gum problems, he had coat issues, he had aggressive issues. And so much of his being and his personality changed just by taking the chemicals and preservatives in the other dog food out of his diet and then doing a detox on him. I do a lot of detox work with the animals to get the chemicals and toxins out, to get the heavy metals from the vaccines out, and then see what you have and then decide what you need to do next. When they're toxic, behavior issues, physical issues, lethargy issues, and I've dealt with this a lot, and I think it's just because that was the path I started. So I got into vaccine research, found out a whole ton of information about how much and how often and why we're doing what we're doing. And then I also looked into food and nutrition and where was the food coming from and what were the ingredients and where were those ingredients coming from, and I was horrified. Today, we're in a much better position with the quality of the food that we can get. But the difference in the dogs when you put them onto more natural ways of being and you don't put as many chemicals and toxins into them, I've seen such huge differences, even behavioral, even aggressive, because when you're toxic, you're in your head and you're mad and, your liver's toxic, so you're angry and
there's a different energy. I know I do a lot of energy work, and I do energy work with animals as well. Yeah. And we can see a difference in their auric energy field when we clear their energy of a lot. We're finding a lot of the animals that have shedding energy based on the vaccines and the toxins that are around, and the animals pick that up and manifest that as well. So when we clear them, they do feel better, and we need to change the diet and do the detox, which that's when I took my cat to the holistic vet. She spent an hour with the cat talking only about her diet and about her litter, and no shots, no blood draws, no medications, nothing, just getting her off. Cats are not supposed to eat seafood. I've always fed my cats, salmon and tuna. No, that is not good for them. Getting them on natural diet, raw is best. And the other very interesting thing was the litter. Who would have thought? And it was my Mr. Whiskers that taught us this, because he would dip his paw in the water and then he would go into the litter box, the clay litter, which is loaded with chemicals, keeps the room smelling better, but it's loaded with chemicals. Then he licks this. Now he gets toxic. So we've switched over to some natural litter that is, if they lick it, it's not going to chemically affect them. Who would have thought, just being a regular cat owner, I never thought about that until watching what he went through. And now I'm definitely more aware.
And it's fascinating too, because the animals will actually exhibit behavior to let us know that something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And so cats that pee outside of the litter box.
Right.
When they don't eat their food, or they're really picky about their food, excuse me, and dogs that are exhibiting bizarre behavior. So very often, if I go in and a dog suddenly behaviorally has changed, the first question I ask, when were they vaccinated and what with? What are you feeding? What's your environment? Are you using those plug-in, smell nice things that are so incredibly toxic to all of us? Are you spraying stuff in the air that is toxic? I mean, there's so many things that we do to have that outer layer look and feel good, but what's it doing on a deeper level?
Right.
And when you sit and actually ask the animals, which is what that's my job, they will point stuff out to me. They will go to their food bowl and then come back to me. I'm like, okay, something's up with the food. And then we'll talk about what that might be. The other really fascinating piece is that sometimes when I do home visits, the animals will walk around. I never make them stay in the area that I'm sitting in. And I always sit on the floor. But when we're discussing something that is pertinent and important to them, even if it wasn't the reason I came in, they will come back and join in the conversation. The dogs will come and sit in circle. The cats will come sit in circle. And it's like, okay, this is really important to me right now. And so we work through it and we discuss it. And sometimes it's about opening people up to the idea that something can be done differently. I have a very heavy hitter story that got me there. And so my passion is to help people just have an understanding. My tagline is, your animals have options. So know that there's options out there and there's choices out there. And then in our own journey as a human being with that animal, we make our own choices. And we come to things or we don't. And the animals will do their best to teach us what they're here to teach us. And it's our awareness and our own healing process that determines how much of that we hear.
And I would love to hear your heavy-hitting story. I want to interject one thing that I learned years ago about EMF. We are conscious of it. I have a little button that I have on my phone to protect from my EMF. Our animals are walking around at ground level with all of our appliances plugged in. They are being bombarded by electromagnetic energy, and they're right at that level. So we have to be a little bit more cautious and conscious of the plugins that we have. Just unplug. Just don't have this stuff constantly exuding interfering energy that interferes with their energy circuits.
And it's such a great point. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's another piece of toxicity. And I bring that up often with people. And I actually recommend, there are certain crystals that will protect against the EMF. And so for dogs, you can put crystals on a collar and it bubbles them from the EMF, and it's calming. So they don't feel that bombardment because it's happening out and not in, really close to them. I have people put the crystals up against their equipment so that the equipment's now being, the equipment's being bubbled. Too close to the mic. The equipment's being bubbled, and that in itself can be huge for healing.
Right.
And the animals exhibit what we don't necessarily feel because we've lost the ability.
Right.
And so when we do that for the animals, we're taking care of ourselves. And ultimately, that's their message.
Yes.
If it's bombarding me, it's bombarding you. So they're teaching all the time.
It is wonderful. It's awakening to know that, and to be a little bit more tuned into our animals. We pet them, they lower our blood pressure, they bring us joy. That's one thing, especially in this day and age. We need a source of joy, because if you tap into anything that's going on in the world, we look out and see all of this stress and strife and fear. But if we can just hug our animals, pet our animals, they're just so adept at bringing our energy to center.
Right. It's because they're so grounded. They're connected to the earth.
They have 4 paws on the ground.
They do. My horse, Echo, always used to say north, south, east, and west on the ground.
Really? Wow.
Which, 4. So,
Yes.
and 4 is such a magical number anyway with so many different things. But we're not grounded. Sunshine, my miniature horse, writes poetry. And one of the things that she channeled recently was how we never touch the earth because our shoes are rubber. So we're not in that tribal form where we're touching the earth and getting amazing healing from the earth. It's called earthing.
Absolutely.
And the energy that you get from the earth is balancing, it's healing, it's vibrational. A lot of animals that are close to transition want to lay on the earth. They want to leave on the earth. They want to reconnect to the earth. And you find that they want to be outside more and more and more and more. It's because the vibration it's nurturing, it's unconditional, it's loving.
Absolutely.
And so it's huge. We've lost that ability. And very often indoor cats, I recommend a litter box of earth.
Really?
Because they never touch the earth.
Yeah, that is one of my heartbreaking things, is to keep her inside. Whiskers would go in and out, and he loved being outside, but he stayed close to home. I had just lost so many animals to the wild that I'm keeping her and these new ones in.
Yeah.
But it would be good to have...
Yeah, just get a great big box or litter box of some kind and dig up some grass and earth and just put it in there and nurture it and water it, and it gives them a place to ground.
I like that. That's awesome.
I used to recommend it to the shelters too.
Yeah, really. That's really great. Now, you had a download last... I know you have a story to tell. We have about 8 more minutes. You had a download last night you wanted to share.
I did.
So...
Thank you. I went to bed early last night going, I have to get up early. I'm going to have an early night. I'm going to snuggle with my puppy, get a good night's sleep. No sleep. Up and down. I live in a camper full time, and the breaker for the air conditioning went at 11:45 last night. So I was up and out fixing that and going, oh my God. I don't remember the download, but it was very higher vibrational. It was very multidimensional. It was beings that I don't think I've ever communicated with before. So this was huge. And I had opened up the Lionsgate portal wanting to bring a message today, but it wasn't for me to bring a message. It was for me to have this personal experience. But it's shifting again, this place of just receiving from all places.
Right.
Receiving from places we may not even know or understand, but they're there. And these energies are just coming in, and they're just so key to the shifting and changing that's happening on Earth. And we need all of it.
Yes.
As human beings, we can walk the path, but we need all of this outside energy to come in, and that ancient wisdom, again, to come in and guide us and show us the way. And so it was a huge download. And when I woke up this morning, there was all these geese flying overhead, and they were making their noise. And then there was a flock of 24 geese in a field on my way over here. If there's time, I would love to just read. It's like a 3-line.
Please do. I love the geese. I have a story about geese myself. Yes.
So this book, it's called Animals Speak by Ted Andrews, and it's a pocket book because I keep it in the car. And whenever I see an animal, I can look it up and get a quick message about what that animal was about. And so Goose... see, now I can't find it, right? Okay, let me see.
So as she's looking for this,
that's so funny.
When I lived in an old house that was on a country golf course, and the geese would nest there, and I loved watching the geese. Of course, the golfers hated it because they would, they're messed everywhere. But what was fascinating to me was how the parents taught their young to graze. The adults would be on either side, and their young would be in the middle, and they would graze in a chevron, in like an angle. One family group would graze at one angle, and another family group would graze at another angle. And they were teaching their young so that when they would fly in that sort of a tiered formation. And I also love the concept of how when the lead goose is tired, another will step right in and allow that one to rest. So it is about a true community. So geese is very special. So you found
how cool.
this. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this is a message for everybody that's
Please.
listening.
Yes.
As well as the message that it was for me. So So Goose is about following your quest. So heed the call to the new quest. Open to the new wonders and possibilities. Pursue new adventures. Explore new travels.
And this being Lionsgate.
Yes.
The 8/8 Lionsgate. Yes. This is a very special time where energies are wide open. This is kind of like the Galactic New Year, if you will. And so, yeah, it's time for a new path, an ascension path, keeping that energy high. We're bringing in the high vibe energy, regardless of the illusion that is being played out in front of us. We have to hold that high vibe energy. Our animals, our pets are part of that. And we, as we find each other, are part of holding that together.
Absolutely. Yes. And I hope this message resonates with everybody that's listening on some level. Just feel it within you and see what sparks and what inspires you, and then see what happens when you go out and about, and how this message will show itself to you in different ways.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, you have an event coming up?
I do. So August 25th to 31st, down on Cape Cod, I have this beautiful place that I'm going to be using. It's a very generational-based place. And we're doing a retreat. We're doing everything that we've talked about. So each day will be focused on something a little different. So one day is ancestors, another day is animal guides, another day is the ocean energy, another day is the nature elements, and having the time to really sit and open up to what their messages are and just be introspective. It's about you. And
that sounds fabulous.
Your own growth. And we're going to do fire ceremonies, and we're going to do meditations. Wow. And it's just bringing all of what we've been talking about together, and all of the multi-beings and earth, and just bringing everything together in this very, very magical place.
So how do people find you?
You can reach me on my website, Niko Natural Therapies, NIKOE.com. That's probably the best place to reach me. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on YouTube, and I'm on LinkedIn. Michele Lowry is probably a great place to find me.
And
also.
Michele is with one L.
Michele is with one L, and it's Lowry.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're near the end of our journey today. It goes so fast. Thank you so much for all that you do for the animals and for the caretakers of the animals, us humans. And thank you for sharing your insight with us this day.
Thank you so much. It's been just a pleasure to be here.
It has been. It's been a pleasure having you. Until next week, everyone, please look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. God bless.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN.live.